So I'm finally looking at the Judge. Last week, we had an internal failure of the firearm. During single action operation, a single round, we loaded a single round in there. We were doing some training, and the round went off, and then something happened inside the frame mechanically. There is a spent casing inside the cylinder, just one. There's no danger of the gun going off. There's nothing to go off. There's only one, like I said, spent casing inside. Basically, when operating single action, you pull the trigger and she'll fire, but the trigger doesn't return. If I wiggle the hammer, there she goes. Double action operates normally, but again, the trigger's not returning. Whoop, there she goes. All right. Then the other problem, the major problem, is the cylinder release is not releasing. It's not releasing under normal conditions with the hammer down, and it's not releasing under cocked conditions with the hammer down. Okay, so let's take it apart. The cylinder lock works. The index key that's under here works because that locked the cylinder. Okay. All right, but other than that, let's take it down and see what it is. So after we remove the side plate and the grip, we see almost immediately that the release, the cylinder release, is stuck. It came all the way back and out, and it's kind of jammed at a weird angle in there. And if you look on this side, I know the gun's upside down, but if you look at this side, that's where the knob was. And look at that. It's not even in the bore correctly. So we're going to have to investigate further and see if anything broke, or maybe the frame is worn out. I mean, I don't have more than a few hundred rounds through it, and I don't want to hear that it's a novelty gun. It's a Taurus. It's a Taurus. It's a novelty gun. I don't want to hear that shit. All right, I don't see anything broken. The frame is a little beat up. I would assume this is from us trying to fire it while it was broken, you know, while it wasn't functioning correctly. This is the cylinder release. Again, I don't see anything broken. It's, you know, the black coating is worn away, and, you know, it's the metalwork is not really the best. Shut up, it's a Taurus. But you know, the trigger, the firing pin disconnector, everything looks good. This is the lockout on the hammer. The hammer looks good. You know, doesn't look like it's excessively worn or anything like that. All of the springs are intact. The cylinder, this little spring-loaded button in the middle, this is what releases the cylinder. That's the axle that it spins on. And then you hit the button, and that little lever, this, pushes in on the middle of this to release it from the frame. So, like I said, that looks good. I'm just going to try to clean some stuff up with a file maybe and put it back together and see what the hell is what. I don't understand how it failed like that. None of the screws were loose. That's obviously oiled. But, all right. I found the problem. All right, here's the problem. Now, this is a pretty complicated revolver. I don't know why it's so complicated, but it is. And I've gotten used to that fact. I've had it apart a couple of times, so I know what I'm doing. Now, as you pull the trigger, okay, the hammer drops, and you see it doesn't touch the firing pin. It touches that disconnector. Bang. See the firing pin inside there? Now watch it retract as I release the trigger. Okay, now, all of this mechanism hinges on the fact that that little catch that was cockeyed in there is in the rear position, because it doesn't want you to fire, to be able to fire the gun unless the cylinder axle is locked in place. Okay, I'm going to put the camera down for just a second. Okay, I just opened it. Now, see what I'm talking about? Right? So if that is in the forward position, the hammer won't cock. Okay? I'm trying to get some light on it so you can see it. But the hammer, it's not working. Anyway, the hammer won't cock. Okay? It gets in the way of this little lock lever, this little spring-loaded lever that's in there. So basically what happens is you can't fire the gun and either have the cylinder accidentally come unlocked or fire it with the cylinder actually open. Okay? So, I'm trying to hold this together with one hand. So, you see how that's now back. So, look, if I flip it over, okay, there it is. All right? Look what I can do. Why is there so much play there? Okay? Now, a certain person who's going to be watching this, this was not your fault, but I bet you any amount of money that you were holding this with your giant mitts like this, okay, or somewhere thereabouts, and you had this pressed in up against the frame, and when it fired, it jammed and failed. All right, so I spent a lot of time doing some research. And as it turns out, there are a lot of problems with the Judge with this cylinder release mechanism. So apparently, in order to save money, Taurus has used the same insides on pretty much all of their handguns, from the little micro mini revolvers all the way up to the Raging Judges. And they have not bothered to fix this issue. And the issue is that these guns are so high of a caliber that the insides just can't handle it. So anyway, what we're going to have to do is I'm going to have to take up this slack. So in the last video that I showed you, this was the problem, that there's too much play in this release mechanism. So what I'm going to do is, this outer knob rides in a slot on the frame, and that's what locates this whole thing to go back and forth. So I figured out, using a set of feeler gauges, that there is, what is that, 15 and 16 is 31. There's 31 thousandths of play in between, without forcing it in there, in between the button and the frame. So I have to, I'm going to remove like 27 thousandths. I don't want to make it so tight that it rubs on the frame and makes all kinds of marks and stuff, but at the same token, I don't want to have to do this again. So that's all we're going to do. I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper and a Dremel, and I'm just going to remove enough material off that just to bring this button closer up there to the frame, so that it slides back and forth and that it doesn't rub on the frame and it still engages that slot. And that's it. That should be the fix. All right. So that worked out actually really well. So it was, what did I say, 31 thousandths? So when I measured the actual thickness, it was like 127 thousandths of an inch, and I took that right down to exactly a tenth of an inch, exactly 0.1 of an inch. And let me just get centered in a camera here. Yeah, no more play, very little play, and she slides back and forth real nice. So I'm gonna put it back together, and we'll see what it feels like then. Put a little oil on it, and that should be the end of that. That's it. She's done. No play. Nothing. She's locked in there tight. Hit the button. Comes open. Back in. Locked in. Indexed. No problems. She feels good. Methinks another range day is in order. Got to make sure she works good before I let certain other people get their mitts on it.